welcome in Aaron Beverly, who's been playing and playing well on the APGA. Aaron, thank you very much for joining us. Much appreciated for the time.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate being on here.
Game seems pretty sharp, right? I'm looking through the leaderboards. I'm checking out the finishes. You got to feel pretty stout about your game right now.
Yeah, the game's feeling pretty solid. It's been like a work in progress kind of since I won back in Wilshire in November. Just kind of a lot of stuff has happened since then. But yeah, so it's definitely trending in the right direction.
And you're currently in Canada, right? So this is you're kicking off the Canadian swing here. Describe to us what the next handful of weeks looks like for you from a kind of a competitive aspect.
Yeah, in Canada currently, our season is 11 tournaments through 15 weeks, so it kind of spans the whole country. Right now we're in Victoria. Next stop is in Edmonton, and then I think Saskatchewan, and then Prince Edward Island. So kind of work our way all the way east and then kind of come back towards the west. So putting in a lot of frequent flyer miles and basically seeing a country that I've only ever seen one other time. So it's nice to kind of be back up here and playing again.
Take us back through. I'm curious. I was reading through everything and obviously had known about you from Riviera this year from the Genesis Invitational, but take us back through like what post-college looked like for you as you kind of entered into playing golf professionally, and just what that like, just even like a timeline of what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2017 and immediately, kind of like most kids these days, moved back home with my parents. And as soon as I got back home, my dad was like, all right, now you need to get a job. And I was like, okay, well, I thought playing professional golf was going to be my main focus, but I needed a way or like a place to play and practice at. So I went and worked at Silverado Country Club in Napa, where they have it used to be the Safeway Open. Now it's the Fortinet Open. So worked there, did every job possible there, was in the pro shop, was on the driving range, was cart kid, caddied, all basically to fund my professional playing career. So turned professional in 2018, got status on the Latin America Tour in Canada that year, did a bunch of Monday qualifiers, and then 2019 had a little bit more success and then got a full season up in Canada. So I came up here and played, and then went back home, played some mini tour stuff, and then kind of, the world shut down in 2020. So didn't really do much there other than some mini tour stuff in California. And then 2021, kind of the same path, and then, APGA towards the end of the year, and then back 2022, now I'm back up in Canada.
Yeah, it's so I don't know what the right word is. I was gonna say it's so funny to hear the grind described, right? I don't think people realize like it's not Rory McIlroy for everybody, and everybody's very good. There's only so many spots, and finding a way to advance the game, finding a place to compete, Aaron, can be difficult at times.
Yeah, no doubt. And somebody told me the other day, because I was working actually at another country club, same reason to, fund my playing career. And I put my 2 weeks in and they asked me what I was planning on doing. I said, I'm just going to focus on playing professionally. And the guy told me, he's like, oh, it's really difficult, path you're choosing. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, any path you choose, if you want to be top 150 in the world at anything, is going to be really difficult. So I believe in myself and believe in the work that I put in my whole entire life. And this is what I love to do. So I'm just along for the ride and enjoying myself every step of the way.
That's a really good point. I think we don't often think about like the PGA Tour being only the top 125, 160, whatever the number is, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious for you, like what is the best path forward into the PGA Tour, or is that like, obviously that's like the destination that everybody wants, but what is the best path forward for you? Is it qualifying through a different tour? Is it is it winning like what for you is like, okay, I think this is the path. I'm not positive I can do it, but I believe in myself. That's what I'm going to attempt to do over the next however many years.
Yeah, I think it starts with PGA Tour Canada for me, and then having success on this tour would lead directly into the Corn Ferry Tour, and then have a, success on that tour would lead right into the PGA Tour. So that is kind of the path I see for myself. There's also, other ways to do it. You can Monday qualify into a PGA Tour event, or you can get, a sponsors exemption into a couple events and play well, and then just immediately get jumped into it. So there's different ways to do it. I think my timeline for myself is definitely Canada to Corn Ferry to PGA Tour.
Real quick, Rick, let me follow up on that. I know that for Corn Ferry to PGA, it's top 25 regular season, top 25 playoffs. What is how does that work for Canada into Corn Ferry?
Top 10. So top 10 at the end of the year, go Corn Ferry.
That's nasty.
Yeah.
That's tough.
But the way I look at it is, at the end of the day, it's still just golf, right? And everyone's got to hit the same shots. Everyone's got to play the same courses. So I don't look at, I don't judge myself off other people. I just try to make sure I focus on what I'm doing. And as I do it to the best of my abilities, then everything will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I want to do look back for just 1 second, because Kyle mentioned this earlier. We saw you at Riv. We saw you at the Genesis Invitational, and I'd be remiss because today, as we talk, this would have been Charlie Sifford's 100th birthday. You earned the Charlie Sifford exemption into the Genesis Invitational. I can imagine this is a great day of reflection for all of us, for his contributions to the game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm able to compete on this tour because of Charlie, and everything that he's done to advance the game of golf, because before him, it was a wide only clause to be on the PGA Tour. So without him, there's not Hideki, as we were just talking about, and a handful of other guys, not just African-American golfers. So his impact on the game of golf is exponential and, worldwide, not just, something that should be celebrated in America.
For sure. What was that like? And you probably get asked about this all the time, but the press conference with Tiger, it's got to be, well, I'd love for you to describe it, but it's got to be surreal to just be sitting there and looking, next to you, and you're like, that's freaking Tiger standing. I mean, it's such I still do that. And I've been covering this for like 10 years now. And what was that like for you? Did you enjoy it? Were you nervous? What were the emotions going through you?
Yeah, so naturally, I'm not a nervous person for the most part, kind of in each situation. But when I met him earlier and we had a conversation and we were walking to the press conference, he goes, "Hey, you're going to answer every question." I'm like, "They're not going to ask me anything. The world wants to hear from you. They don't want to hear from me." And so we were laughing, and then they opened the doors to the media center. And as soon as they opened the door and I looked, that's when I got nervous, because there's a bunch of people and a bunch of cameras. And I'm like, my college comms class freshman year didn't prepare me for this. So we walked down, we sat down. And then as we sat down, I'm so thankful that they had water on the table, because my mouth went dry instantly. And I just remember sitting there and I stared at one of the cameras and I'm like, this is being broadcast around the world. And I'm like, all right, just don't say anything stupid. And he was sitting there. I remember one time I got stuck looking at his arm for some reason, because I'm like, that's really Tiger's arm. But it was awesome. I mean, it was just one of those moments in life that I'll never forget. And I'm sure I'll tell my kids and grandkids about it. It's great that it's on YouTube, because I can show them so they know I'm not lying. But yeah, it was pretty special.
Yeah, that's so sick. And then to be out there with your peers at Riv. I mean, Riviera is just walking on the ground at Riviera is like almost a religious experience for me. I mean, it's just absolutely perfect. And you being out there competing, I mean, I imagine something like that just fuels the fire, right? Like, I belong here. I want to be back here. I want to be doing this week in and week out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the Tuesday when I played the practice round, I played 9 holes with Max Homa, Ches Reavie, and Matt Wallace. And Homa and I played a game, like just a little money game against those two. And Homa and I won, and I contributed, which was great. So it was just one of those things, like when you see yourself competing against those guys that you see on TV all the time, or, you hear stories about, it's awesome to just be there and really feel like you fit in and that you belong, and that you can compete on that level. So definitely added fuel to the fire, as you said, and just more motivation to go out there, keep practicing, and get back to that stage.
I'd love to take it back a little bit further to just when you were growing up, and I kind of read some about that, and I was fascinated by a couple of different things, but maybe most of all by you were really involved in ballet. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Until you're like 17 years old, and I'm curious about how that translated to golf. Like what there helped you the most, whether it was physical or mental, as it related to golf?
Yeah, I think the easiest answer is flexibility and just balance. That's kind of the first two things that you take away from dance. But honestly, for me, like dancing and preparing for shows and like the summer intensives that we did is so much harder than anything golf related. I mean, because not only like your moves have to be perfect, you have to be matched up with everybody else who's dancing. Then you're on stage and it's with music, so everything's got to be on cue and on point. So I mean, it's great. I'm so thankful to have that as my background and that I did it. I think the transition from dance to golf was seamless just because the discipline you have that you take from ballet works right in, when you practice in golf. So they're both kind of slower paced sports, if you want to call it ballet a sport. It's an art form, but it was really helpful for me, to kind of transition through and take it into golf.
Yeah. I think do we have a photo here, Rick? Here we go.
Wow. How about that? Mr. Jacob, if you're
Yeah.
watching YouTube, what are we looking at here, Aaron?
Okay,
Well,
so
we're looking at a torn ACL, if that's me. So
what's great about this is this was dress rehearsal and they didn't put the makeup on me yet. So the makeup for the show was this like really extravagant face makeup because I was the Chinese man. So it was the Nutcracker, and the face like itself was a lot to handle. But yeah, that's me, young me. I could jump really high back when I was younger. But yeah, that was a good time.
You mentioned
awesome.
kind of the synchronization and working as a unit in dance, but golf is not that. Golf is you. How contrasting those two things, is there one you prefer over another?
Well, dance is definitely easier on you mentally. That's for sure. Golf can be stressful if you let it, but I just love golf. Just like I loved practicing golf more than I loved practicing ballet. I loved performing when I was dancing, but for me, golf is just every day is something different, and you never really know what to expect. No matter how much you practice and you play, each course is different, weather's different. So for me, golf, wins. Obviously, that's the one I'm still doing, but ballet will always have a place in my heart. And whether I have a girl or a boy, one day they're going to dance, and I'll be sure that, I take a couple classes with them too.
That's awesome. I'm curious about one thing Rick and I talk a lot about is just like this almost comical level of self-belief that you have to be one of the best players in the world. And I'm curious for you, what most affects your own self-belief, whether good or bad. So like what improves it the most and what decreases it the most, just in kind of your day-to-day routine.
I would say what always gave me confidence was always my dad. He believed in me more than I believed in myself, which is, I'd like to think I believe in myself a lot. So for him to be, one up me meant a lot. But yeah, you're right. You kind of do just have to have this almost false sense of confidence all the time. Golf, especially if you had a bad shot, you got to move on to the next one because the next one's the most important shot. So what affects me negatively? Honestly, nothing too much anymore. I've kind of just separated myself from kind of bad energy on the golf course just because it doesn't help. Like if I get angry or if I slam a club, it doesn't help me at all. So I just try to stay on this level line with my confidence as much as possible.
And then I know your father sadly passed away, I believe, end of 2019. And I know you've talked about how like that's been hard to just obviously as a dad, but also as like your swing coach and just somebody to be there to encourage you. How have you like, where have you turned for that encouragement or that help as it relates to kind of the mental side of your game?
I mean, honestly, it's just been kind of all to myself. And it was hard at first. I would say the first like 6 to 8 months after he passed, just because after every round I could call him, every day I could call him, or we'd practice together. So I could always, fall back on whatever, he had to say. And just now it's all internal. So I try to handle everything myself, and just rely on what he used to tell me as much as I can. But at the same time, like I have one of my best friends here, Aaron. He's caddying for me this week, so he gets to deal with me and kind of go through the conversations day in and day out on the golf course and kind of what may come up. But yeah, there's no replacing somebody like my dad. I mean, he's my best friend, like you said, my swing coach, my mentor, everything. So it would be a disservice to him if I tried to find a replacement. So I just rely on everything we talked about.
You, Aaron, are going to be one of the subjects of a CBS Sports a docu-series. So there's 2 episodes that are going to air essentially in regards to life on the APGA, which is the Advocates Pro Golf Association. Their stated mission, Aaron, is to prepare African Americans and other minorities to compete and win at the highest level of professional golf. How important is an organization like this in our game right now?
It's huge. I mean, to have the support from, different companies that support the APJ, whether it's Cisco or Farmers Insurance, and all the guys that work for the APGA, Ken Bentley and everybody, kind of behind the scenes. It's great just to have that support of everyone to kind of see this game of golf grow. And it's honestly, like Aaron and I were talking about it the other day, the first day we came out here to Canada. Like normally when you go to a golf tournament, especially up here, there's nobody that looks like us. I mean, there's one other kid that has full status, Danny List. He's from Australia, lives in San Diego now, but he's, of African American descent. So when we go to these APGA Tour events and there's 50, 60, of us out there, it's great. And it's like a brotherhood. So, you never feel like you're alone, which is huge. And I said this before, but you're comfortable in your own skin, which is something that should never be taken for granted. Because when you go elsewhere and you're the only one that looks like you, it can be kind of daunting at times. So to have the APGA and have tournaments to play on there and, have a chance for the support when we move on is exponentially great for the game of golf.
Yeah, I think I'm curious about, just as, obviously I haven't walked in those shoes, and I'm curious about what maybe like your experience of the world has been different than mine, right? And like what, as somebody who's white and a journalist and like not playing and not not a person of color, like what would you like for somebody like me to understand about being in your shoes and about like maybe some of the difficulties that I don't understand in trying to make it in kind of the world that you're in professional golf?
Yeah, my junior year of college, I took a psychology class, and the teacher asked us this great question that I ended up asking my teammates, and I can ask you the same one right now. She started the class. She goes, for everyone in the class, how often do you wake up and do you think about the color of your skin or your ethnicity? And at the time, I was the only African American in the class. So I raised my hand first. I said, every day. I said, because I can sit in this classroom right now and there's nobody else that looks like me. And so I went to practice that day with my college team and I asked them the same question. And of course, all of them said, we don't ever think about it. And I said, for me, this is a daily, just it's not something that I really want to think about, but it's just in the world that I live in, and especially, playing golf, it's just that's how it is. I'm usually one of one. And so there's pressure that comes with that because you have to, you want to set a good precedent for everybody that looks like you or may come after you, so that people don't have a bad impression of, not just you, but everyone else. So that is kind of the one question I would pose for most people to think about. And if it's not something that you think about every day, kind of, imagine what it would be like to go into a country club or go into a different space and just have to know that you are a little bit different and that people may look at you a little bit different, or people may treat you, somewhat different.
How often you think about your race is one of the things that really stuck with me. My wife of Iranian descent, I told her the same. I never think about my race. People ask her, where are you from? She says Virginia, and they say no, but where are you from?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I've never been asked no, but where are you from? Meaning, why does your skin look the way that it looks? Which is something I've never ever encountered in my entire life, and and there are plenty of people who are encountering that literally every single day. I noticed that you do, Aaron, give back your time. You volunteer as assistant men's golf coach at your alma mater, right? Cal State University, Sacramento. Do you feel it important to continue to give back and do your part as a great representative of this sport?
Yeah, I always just try to be the exact same person my dad was to me, for other people. And I went to practice a couple times with the Sac State team before I was a coach. And I loved all the guys. I loved the practice habits. And then I looked at the tournament scores, and they weren't, kind of in line with how I thought they should be playing. So I just asked the coach if I could, help out. And he said, sure. And sure enough, I went to a couple tournaments and saw some things that the guys could do a little bit better and helped them out. And that was my way of giving back. But that's always how my dad was to me. And I think it's important that everybody has someone that can, if you have the ability to give back, I feel like it's a responsibility. You should. So that's just how I was raised, and that's how I'm always going to be moving forward.
Do you think that I'm reading the there's 100 Tiger Woods books, but I'm reading the Tiger Woods book from like 4 or 5 years ago by Armin Katayan and Jeff Benedict, and it's really interesting, and most of it is good. But I'm always shocked when I read about, just sort of like golf's culture, even as recently as like the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, like stuff that we were all alive for, which is, it's not good. And I'm curious about whether you feel like it's getting worse in terms of like the way people of color are treated or invited in, or whatever. Do you feel like it's getting worse? Do you feel like it's neutral, or do you feel like it's getting better? And how does the APGA kind of play into all that?
Yeah, I want to say it's getting better. It might be slowly, but it is getting better. I mean, I think COVID honestly helped out a lot because it introduced a whole new generation to golf. I mean, I had buddies of mine that played baseball in high school or didn't, had never touched a golf club. And they were calling me, hey, can we get some golf lessons? We're trying to get into it. And it was just one of those things because there wasn't much to do. Like, you couldn't travel, you couldn't really do anything, but the golf courses were always open. So that definitely helped. In terms of tournaments and kind of the way golf looks, it's so tough because it's so expensive. I mean, if you want to be really good at golf, the amount of money you have to put into it is, most people don't have it, and especially most people of color don't have it. It's, from a large bucket of balls being $12 to a full set of like good clubs being probably close to $3,000 to $5,000, to having a place to play, 3 to 5 times a week. Now traveling for tournaments, paying for tournaments, paying for food, paying for rental cars, flights. I mean, it all adds up. And whereas if you want to play basketball, you need a ball and you need some shoes, or soccer. And so that's where like the APGA comes in, and it's huge because they support us, and the tournaments are on great golf courses. The entry fees aren't as expensive as some other mini tours. The purses are getting a lot better than they've used to be. So it's great to have an organization like that. Now you need 20 organizations like that so you can, not just touch 50 people, or you can hit, 1,000. And so until that part of it kind of changes and there's, like some substantial financial backing behind it, it's hard to see it really progress rapidly. I mean, it's great. Like Steph Curry now has a tournament for, minorities that's free for them. And, he takes care of the cost, which is great. So you just need that initiative moving forward, a lot more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steph Curry, also Billy Horschel put on like an APGA event, right? He was a host of one.
Yep.
This docuseries from CBS Sports. So I want to make sure I get this in here. So it's going to air 2 different days. Tuesday, June 7th, CBS Sports Network, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's called The Founder, Life on the APGA Tour. And then June 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern, CBS Television Network. That is Up and Down, Life on the APGA Tour. Was this like a Netflix style doc? Were they following you around with cameras in your face at all times? How intrusive was this process?
Yeah, no, it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was one of those things like you see it for other people, but when it's happening to you and there's cameras in the car and there's cameras when you're cooking and there's cameras everywhere, it took a little bit to get used to. But I'm so good now at like putting the tape under the shirt and having the mic, ready to go. But it was pretty neat to kind of be a part of it. And I'm excited to see, how it turns out and kind of the response.
Yeah, I every time I see like just out on tour guys being followed around with cameras, I don't understand how they act normal. I would be just like either not say anything or be like an idiot trying to make jokes and like they wouldn't be funny. And it's got to be hard to get used to. Guy, I got a bunch of things I could ask you. I'll go with this because I know we're running out of time here, but who have you been around, whether it was playing with tour guys or on mini tours or in college? Who have you been around that you see them hit the ball and you're like, wow, that's different. Like that impresses me. Because I mean, Rick and I talk about this. Everybody hits it pretty good, but there's some guys that you're like, that's a little bit different. Who was that guy for you?
The first one that comes to mind was Cameron Champ. When we grew up as kids, we played in a tournament in Georgia. And I remember I hit a driver. I hit it decent, nothing great, but he hit his 2-iron past my driver. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I looked back at his club. I'm like, he really just hit that past my driver? So that one was the first one. Since then, gosh, I played my final round of high school golf with Bryson, but that was before Bryson was Bryson.
Yeah.
So that wasn't too different. I played my final round of college with Colin Morikawa. He hit his irons really good. So yeah. I always remember that. And then played with Max Homa a couple months ago, and he hit his driver really straight. And that was like my one takeaway. So just bits and pieces kind of from everybody.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to be respectful of your time here. We could do this for a couple more hours, I'm sure. But Aaron, 2 under 68 in the opening round of the Royal Beach Victoria Open. I can say that we're going to run that tonight. So I'm not dating this podcast or anything. So looking towards Friday's second round. What did you do well today? What are you excited for? How do you size up your chances?
Yeah, today we just kept everything in front of us. My dad always used to tell me you can't win the tournament on the first day, but you sure can take yourself out of it. So that's kind of been my mentality on first rounds. Hit it decent, putted pretty solid, got up and down when I was out of position. So that was all good. Tomorrow it's supposed to rain here overnight and in the morning, so the course will be a little bit softer. So it can be a little bit more aggressive at flags because right now the greens were really firm, so you couldn't just fire at every pin. So try to, put it close to the hole and make putts is kind of the job description for tomorrow.
I love it. KP, any final thoughts before we let him get back to dinner or whatever else he's got planned for tonight?
No, I did.
Basketball game.
Watching the finals, baby. Let's go.
I know. That's what I want to do, too. I did read that you were tight with Greg Vaughn, which Rick and I both grew up playing baseball. So that was a blast from the past. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, GV's my guy. I met him when I was in college. We played one of our college AMs at his home course where he's a member, and we hit it off right away and ended up playing a couple of his charity events and still see him pretty much every week when I'm back home. So yeah, GV's awesome.
That's very cool, man. This was great. I appreciate your I appreciate your time, but also just like being honest about answering some of these questions, and we wish you the best. We're rooting for you, and hope things go well for you, and we're covering you out on the PGA Tour soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And anytime you guys need somebody to talk to, I'm always around.
Awesome stuff. Aaron Beverly there. You can find him on Twitter. Do you tweet a lot, Aaron? Should they follow you on Twitter, or would you prefer Instagram?
Instagram is fine. My Twitter, I just go just to read stuff. I don't tweet at all.
All right.
I'll leave that to Homa.
Tough act to follow there. Aaron Beverly, that's Kyle Porter. I'm Rick Gaiman. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.